Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This is part two of our Ahimsa Q&A.
That's right. We're tackling 5 really tough questions about Jain nonviolence.
Yeah, some of the trickiest ones, actually. And we're doing it by looking at both, timeless Jain wisdom, but also pairing that with some pretty solid, respected modern science.
Exactly. From neuroscience to sustainability studies, we're trying to bridge that gap.
And hey, if you're finding these conversations useful, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep these deep dives going.
Definitely. And just a reminder, all the scientific links and resources we're going to talk about today,
Yeah.
they're all listed down in the description and in the pinned comment. So you can check those out for yourselves.
Okay, so let's dive right into the first big challenge. This is one I hear a lot. It's about accidents and karma.
Accidents, intention, and karma. It's a thorny issue.
Right. So the question people ask is, look, does Jainism really give you bad karma if you accidentally hurt someone? Like, even if you had zero intention of causing harm?
Yeah, the example you used before, the builder built a perfectly good bridge,
Well,
follows all the codes,
does everything right.
and then a freak tornado, an act of God, destroys it,
Yeah.
and people get hurt. Does that builder get negative karma? It feels unfair, right?
It really does. On the surface, how can that possibly be fair in a world full of unpredictable stuff?
Well, okay, every tradition grapples with fairness and responsibility, doesn't it?
Sure.
And Jainism's take is maybe a bit more nuanced than the simple, what goes around comes around. The deep teaching is that karma isn't just about the final outcome.
It's not just the result.
No. It hinges really heavily on your intention and, maybe even more importantly, your level of awareness,
Yeah.
your care, or, the lack of it.
Okay, so intention and awareness. How does that play out with the bridge builder?
So if someone is genuinely exercising the highest possible degree of care, like really being mindful, fully present, doing everything they possibly can to ensure safety,
The absolute best effort.
the best effort, and harm still happens because of something totally unforeseen, like that tornado,
Oh.
then the karmic impact is minimal, maybe even zero.
Ah, okay. So truly accidental harm after maximum effort doesn't load you up with bad karma.
Exactly. Where the negative karma really comes in is either through deliberately causing harm, obviously,
Right.
or through what the Jains call pramada.
Pramada. What's that translate to, roughly?
It's often translated as carelessness, negligence, spiritual inertia, lethargy. It's basically failing to exercise the awareness you should have in a situation where you have a responsibility.
Got it. So let's take the builder example again. If a different builder cut corners, used cheap materials, ignored safety checks to save money, and then the bridge collapses, maybe even helped along by a storm, that builder is racking up karma.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Big time. Because their actions or inactions stem from pramada, from that negligence, that lack of due care and awareness, even if a natural event was the final trigger.
So fairness here is defined by the internal state, the intention, the effort, the awareness, not just the external result, which can be random.
That's the core distinction. It's about the quality of your conscious engagement with your actions. And what's really fascinating
Yeah.
is how this ancient idea finds some pretty compelling echoes in modern neuroscience, especially around awareness and accountability.
You're talking about Benjamin Libet's work, the readiness potential stuff.
Exactly. Libet's experiments, though controversial in some interpretations, really dug into this timing of conscious will versus unconscious brain activity.
Right. Refresh our memory a bit. He found the brain activity started before people were aware of deciding to act, didn't he?
He did. He found this readiness potential, this buildup of neural activity related to a voluntary action, starting maybe 300 to 500 milliseconds before the person reported consciously deciding to, say, flick their wrist.
Which initially made some people think, uh-oh, free will is just an illusion.
Right. If the brain starts before I decide, who's really in charge?
Yeah.
But Libet's later analysis and further research painted a more complex picture. It's not just about the start of the action.
Okay, so what else is going on?
Well, Libet also found there's a crucial window, maybe about 100 to 200 milliseconds, right before the muscle actually moves.
After the readiness potential starts, but before the action happens.
Precisely. And in that short window, subjects could consciously decide not to act. They could veto the action that was already brewing unconsciously.
The veto window, I see the connection immediately.
It's striking, isn't it?
So if that initial impulse may be an angry reaction, or the urge to cut that corner on the bridge is like the unconscious readiness potential, then the practice of ahimsa, the cultivation of awareness, is like strengthening your ability to use that little window, to hit the brakes.
That's a great way to put it. The science suggests our conscious awareness is the critical intervention point for moral action. It's where we can step in and override an impulse that's already started non-consciously.
So Jain practices, like meditation or constant mindfulness, are essentially training that veto muscle.
You could say that.
Yeah.
They're designed to increase the sensitivity and effectiveness of that conscious awareness, making you better able to catch those initial unexamined impulses, the pramada, and choose a different course.
So accountability shifts. It's not about the unconscious urge popping up because maybe we can't control that initial spark.
Right.
It's about whether we consciously engage, whether we use that window to intervene or just let the impulse run its course through neglect.
Exactly. Libet's work, viewed this way, really underscores that the ethical quality isn't just in the outcome or even the initial spark, but in the presence or absence of that conscious aware intervention. It makes the Jain focus on vigilance seem incredibly practical, not just philosophical.
So the key takeaway from this whole first section, looking at both Jain thought and Libet's findings, it seems to be that awareness is the absolute bedrock of fairness and accountability. It's about judging the effort, the intention, the mindful presence, not just the chaotic outcomes.
Beautifully put. Both ancient wisdom and modern science seem to point right there. Awareness is where responsibility truly lies.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense for external actions, but that leads us straight into the next big challenge, doesn't it? The internal world.
Ah, yes. Section 2. The seemingly impossible task of controlling our thoughts and words.
This one feels really personal, I think, for a lot of people. Jainism says that even thinking angry thoughts, holding on to resentment, or even just using harsh, sharp words, that's also a form of violence. Bhava himsa.
Violence of the mind or dispositional violence, yes.
But honestly, how? How can anyone possibly control every single thought or emotion that pops into their head? Thoughts just appear, don't they? Isn't demanding we eliminate all Bhava himsa just setting an impossible standard?
It definitely sounds impossible if you think the goal is immediate 100% purity, like flick a switch and never have an angry thought again.
Right, which nobody can do.
Nobody. Yeah. And the Jain response, historically and philosophically, acknowledges that. It knows the human mind is, well, messy. It's full of impulses, conflicts, old patterns.
So if perfection isn't the immediate goal, what is? What's the realistic aim?
The value, the virtue, lies in the ongoing effort. The practice, what Jains call samyak charitra, right conduct, which includes right mental conduct. It's about the commitment to noticing. Noticing that flicker of anger when it arises. Pausing on that surge of resentment. Catching yourself before the harsh words come out. It's about bringing awareness to the internal landscape and, crucially, seeking continuous improvement.
So it's like exercising a muscle. You don't expect to lift 500 pounds on day one, but you commit to the training.
That's a perfect analogy. The commitment to internal nonviolence is a practice of vigilance, of building awareness, not a state you just magically achieve.
Okay, but here's the question I always have with this kind of thing. Does just noticing my anger actually do anything? Or am I just becoming more aware of how messed up I am? Is the effort genuinely productive, or is it just, wishful thinking?
And that's where the science gets incredibly exciting. Because research, especially from places like Harvard Medical School, Stanford, and others studying mindfulness and meditation, it doesn't just say, yeah, self-awareness is nice.
It goes further.
Much further. It shows these practices have physical efficacy. They actually change the brain through neuroplasticity.
Okay, neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself. We're not just talking about feeling calm or anecdotally. We're talking measurable physical changes.
Absolutely. They use tools like fMRI scans to look at brain structure and function in people who regularly practice mindfulness or meditation, comparing them to control groups.
And what do they see changing?
Well, there are a couple of key findings that pop up consistently. First, they often see increased gray matter density and activity in the prefrontal cortex, the PFC.
The PFC, that's like the brain's CEO, right? Planning, decision-making.
And emotional regulation.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's the part that helps you pause, reflect, and manage impulses.
Yeah.
So strengthening the PFC through mindfulness practice literally enhances your ability to regulate those initial emotional flares. It boosts that veto window we talked about.
Wow. So practicing awareness is like upgrading your internal braking system.
You got it. And there's a second key finding that often goes hand in hand with that.
Which is?
A corresponding decrease in the gray matter density and, importantly, the functional connectivity of the amygdala.
The amygdala, the fear center, the fight or flight trigger.
That's the one. It's the brain's quick reacting alarm system, generating fear, anger, stress responses. when mindfulness practice helps to quiet down the amygdala's reactivity.
Then the intensity and the duration of those negative internal states, the Baba-himsa, naturally reduce.
Precisely. You're less likely to be hijacked by that initial wave of anger or fear, and when it does arise, it doesn't tend to stick around as long or feels overwhelming.
That's actually profound.
Huh.
So when the Jain path asks for that constant effort in noticing internal states, it's not just a philosophical exercise.
No.
It's triggering physiological changes. You're literally rewiring your brain to make kindness, calmness, and reflective choice the opposite of Baba-himsa more accessible, more likely.
It provides direct, tangible, scientific support for the principle that inner effort leads to real behavioral change. The impossibility argument starts to dissolve when you see there's a physical mechanism for improvement.
It makes the whole thing feel much less daunting, more achievable.
It does. It's comforting, I think, to know that even small, consistent steps in cultivating awareness are making a meaningful physical difference thanks to neuroplasticity. It's not about reaching perfection tomorrow, but about the power of consistent practice.
Okay, that really clarifies the internal side of things. So now let's zoom back out to the external world and tackle what might be the most common and maybe the most pointed criticism you hear today.
Ah, yes. Section 3, the paradox of indirect harm, or as some call it.
The ahimsa hypocrisy.
This one gets right into the challenges of living an ancient ethic in a modern, interconnected, highly technological world.
So the question goes something like this. How can Jains, especially devout ones, be so incredibly meticulous about, say, not harming tiny insects, maybe even sweeping the path ahead of them or avoiding root vegetables because harvesting them kills unseen life?
Right. Very visible, very micro-level concerns.
And yet, at the same time, use smartphones, drive cars, fly in airplanes. Technology that relies on massive industrial processes, resource extraction, pollution, huge carbon footprints, causing enormous indirect harm.
Isn't that a massive contradiction? A fundamental hypocrisy at the heart of practicing ahimsa today.
Exactly. How do you reconcile the micro-care with the macro impact?
It's a really powerful and, frankly, necessary critique. It forces anyone trying to practice ahimsa seriously today to grapple with the true, full scope of Dravihimsa physical harm in our world.
So what's the Jain response? You can't just ignore the smartphone in your pocket.
No, you can't. And the philosophical response has to start with acknowledging reality. Absolute perfection, zero harm, is simply unattainable for anyone participating in modern society. It's impossible.
Okay, but if perfection is off the table, what stops it from just being hypocrisy? Is it okay as long as you feel a bit guilty using your iPhone?
No, it's got to be more than just guilt. The core, again, comes back to awareness. Honest awareness of the total impact, direct and indirect. And then coupling that awareness with practical, continuous effort to reduce that impact.
Effort again.
And importantly, tying it to the principle of aparigraha.
Aparigraha, non-possession, non-attachment.
Right, so it's not just about the harm of using the phone, but about reducing overall consumption, detaching from needing the latest gadget, simplifying needs. The focus shifts from an impossible goal of zero impact to a continuous journey of mindful progress.
Consciously trying to minimize harm across the board, even if you can't eliminate it.
Exactly. Being aware of the remote consequences, the supply chains, the energy use, and making choices in consumption, in lifestyle, in advocacy that reflect a genuine commitment to minimizing harm.
And here's where science comes in again, really validating that focus on indirect harm, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Because scientific experts, especially in sustainability and climate science, now definitively prove that this indirect harm, the stuff that happens far away, out of sight, genuinely matters. Hugely.
Like your personal carbon footprint.
That's the perfect example. The science validates the need to account for consequences that aren't right in front of your face. It proves the Jain concern wasn't misplaced, just maybe ahead of its time in terms of measurement.
Can we look at some specific data on that?
Sure. A great resource is the work done by places like the University of Michigan Center for Sustainable Systems. They have fact sheets, for instance, on carbon footprints.
And what do they show?
They break down where emissions come from, and they really highlight the importance of what are called Scope 3 emissions.
Okay, Scope 3. Explain that for us. Scope 1 is direct, right? Like your car's exhaust.
Right. Scope 1 is direct emissions from sources you own or control. Scope 2 is indirect emissions from purchased energy, like electricity.
Yeah.
But Scope 3, that's the big one for most consumers.
Where does it include?
It's all the other indirect emissions that occur in your value chain. So it's not just driving the car, it's the emissions from mining the ore to make the steel for the car, The energy used in the factory, the transportation parts, the disposal of the car at the end of its life.
Wow.
It's the emissions from growing the food you eat, processing it, shipping it. For something like this podcast, it's the massive energy needed for the data centers, the manufacturing the devices people are listening on. It's vast.
And the data generally shows that for the average person in a developed country, these Scope 3 indirect emissions are the largest chunk of their footprint, much bigger than their direct energy use or driving.
Often, yes, significantly larger. It highlights that our biggest environmental impact often comes from our consumption patterns, from the upstream and downstream consequences of the products and services we use, the invisible harm.
Which is exactly the kind of remote, unseen harm that Jainism, with its focus on things like root vegetables or microscopic life, was trying to bring into awareness millennia ago.
Precisely. Whether it's the unseen life disturbed by digging up a potato or the remote pollution from manufacturing a microchip, the underlying ethical demand is the same. Expand your awareness to encompass the full consequences of your actions and consumption. The UMIC data just gives us modern tools to quantify that remote harm.
Okay, but I need to push on the hypocrisy point again. If the science confirms this indirect harm is massive, doesn't that strengthen the argument that a truly committed Jain should reject the smartphone, the car, the modern world entirely? Is mindful use of a harmful tool really ahimsa, or just a convenient rationalization?
That's the razor's edge, isn't it? It's the honest tension that defines living this ethic today. If complete withdrawal led to a sustainable, functioning society that could care for everyone, maybe that would be the answer. But Jain philosophy also emphasizes community, knowledge sharing, contributing positively.
So isolation isn't the ideal either.
Generally, no. So the imperative shifts from rejection to mitigation, transformation, and transparency. The response isn't just to use the phone guiltily, but to use it mindfully, perhaps keep it longer, support companies with better environmental practices, advocate for renewable energy to power the networks, drastically reduce consumption in other areas, aparigraha, and be completely honest about the impact you're having.
Leading by example in minimizing harm, even while participating.
Yes, and constantly seeking ways to reduce that footprint further. So the alignment is clear. Both the ancient ethic and modern sustainability science demand for it. We look beyond the immediate and easy into the complex web of consequences. The science validates the focus on remote harm.
And it shifts the goal away from an impossible, static perfection towards a dynamic, honest, continuous process of awareness and improvement. Less about hypocrisy, more about the journey.
Well said. It's about mindful, quantified progress.
Okay, that leads logically to our fourth major question. If we're talking about participating in society, what about the impact of ahimsa on progress itself?
Section 4. Ahimsa and progress. Does strict nonviolence basically put the brakes on human development?
Right. The challenge is, if we took Jain nonviolence to its absolute extreme, could society even function? Could we build essential infrastructure, develop life-saving medicines, farm efficiently enough to feed billions, innovate technologically? If any harm, any dravya ahimsa is absolutely forbidden, wouldn't it just halt everything?
This concern usually comes from seeing ahimsa as purely negative, just don't harm, like a cosmic stop sign on all activity.
Yeah, doctrine of paralysis.
But the Jain understanding is much more balanced, I'd say. It absolutely seeks to minimize harm, drastically. But it doesn't deny the necessity of creation, of building, of growing food, of developing solutions needed for a healthy, thriving society. It's not anti-creation.
So it's not saying never build anything.
No.
Yeah.
It's saying when you build, when you create, when you grow, do it with the deepest possible care for all life involved. Infuse the process with awareness and the intention to minimize suffering. It's about finding the balance between necessary development and compassion.
The goal isn't zero progress or zero harm, because maybe both are impossible together. It's finding the path that allows for responsible progress.
That's it, exactly. And what's really encouraging is that this isn't just a niche Jain idea anymore. If you look at the global stage, there's a growing consensus among world leaders, scientists, international bodies that ethical, sustainable progress isn't just possible, it's the only way forward for humanity long term.
You don't have to choose between having a civilization and having a living planet.
We can't afford to choose. We have to integrate them. And the most prominent example of this global consensus is probably
The UN's Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs.
Exactly, the 17 SDGs. They are, in essence, a global roadmap for exactly this kind of ethical progress we're talking about.
How so? Give us an example.
Well, look at Goal 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. It doesn't say stop building. It calls for building resilient infrastructure, promoting inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and fostering innovation. The keywords are resilient, inclusive, sustainable.
So it's not anti-progress, it's pro-conscious progress. Progress guided by ethical and sustainable consideration.
Precisely. Or take SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. This goal is practically a global policy expression of aparigraha and minimizing dravya-himsa.
Ow!
It explicitly calls for sustainable management and efficient use of natural resources, substantially reducing waste generation, and encouraging companies to adopt sustainable practices. It aims to decouple economic growth from environmental degradation. That's ahimsa applied at a macro policy level.
It suggests ahimsa isn't just a personal ethic, but it can be a framework for guiding large-scale development, too.
Absolutely. It provides the why and the how for responsible innovation.
But how does the philosophy handle unavoidable harm in large projects? Like, say, building a necessary dam for clean energy that inevitably disrupts local ecosystems. Is that still compatible with ahimsa?
That's where the ethical calculus comes in, and it's never easy. Jainism would teach that you must exhaust all less harmful alternatives first. If the project is deemed absolutely necessary for greater societal well-being, like providing essential clean power to millions, preventing greater harm from fossil fuels, then
what?
Then the obligation is to use the absolute best, least harmful technology available to meticulously plan for and mitigate the ecological damage as much as humanly possible, to ensure fair resettlement for any displaced life, and crucially, to ensure the intention is pure, driven by genuine need, not by greed or carelessness, pramana.
So ahimsa becomes the guiding principle for how you undertake necessary actions, ensuring the means are as ethical as the intended end.
Yes. It's the standard against which the ethical viability of progress is measured. Is this action generating the least possible suffering for the greatest essential benefit, undertaken with maximum awareness and care?
That's actually really hopeful. It means we don't have to see progress and ethics as opposing forces. Frameworks like the SDGs show a path where thoughtful choices allow us to build a future that supports both people and the planet.
Ahimsa isn't the brake pedal on progress. It's the highly sophisticated steering system, guiding us towards development that's actually sustainable and just.
Okay, one final challenge. This one goes right to the core of our place in the natural world.
Section 5. The challenge of nature's violence. The ultimate reality check, perhaps.
Yeah, the question is pretty stark. Look around you. Nature is violent. Lions kill zebras, ecosystems run on predation and death. It's fundamental to how life works.
The red and tooth and claw argument.
Exactly. Doesn't this basic, undeniable fact make the Jain goal of complete nonviolence seem, well, unnatural, unrealistic for creatures like us who evolved within that very system? Aren't we just denying our animal nature?
It's a powerful point because it appeals to observable reality. But the critique often misses a key distinction that Jainism makes.
Which is?
The distinction between actions driven purely by instinct versus actions guided by awareness and ethical choice. And also, the difference between physical harm, dravya-himsa, done without malice, and dispositional harm, bhava-himsa.
Okay, unpack that. The lion killing the zebra.
That's instinct. The lion is biologically programmed to hunt. It needs to eat to survive. Its actions maintain the ecological balance, controlling herbivore populations, culling the weak, feeding scavengers. It's functional dravya-himsa.
And crucially, the lion isn't doing it out of malice or cruelty, right? It doesn't have bhava-himsa.
Exactly. It's driven by biological imperative, not by conscious cruelty or enjoyment of suffering. There's no negative intention in the Jain sense.
So how are humans different in the Jain view?
Humans, uniquely, possess this highly developed capacity for self-reflection, abstract thought, empathy, and moral reasoning, thanks to our complex brains, the PFC we discussed earlier. Jainism sees this capacity not as something unnatural, but as our distinctive nature.
Our special gift, almost.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And the invitation of ahimsa is for humans to use this gift, to rise above mere instinct when possible, to consciously choose kindness, compassion, and harm reduction because we can reflect on the consequences and empathize with the suffering of others.
So the goal isn't to make humans stop acting like animals entirely, because we are animals. It's to act like the kind of animal we are when capable of conscious ethical choice.
Precisely. It's not about stopping the lion from being a lion. It's about the human choosing not to cause harm when they have the awareness, the capacity, and the alternative options to do so.
And science backs this up too, right? The idea that humans have a unique capacity for moral reasoning.
Strongly. While other animals show amazing intelligence and even forms of empathy, scientists generally agree that the human capacity for complex, abstract moral frameworks, for projecting future ethical consequences, and for deliberately modifying behavior based on a chosen ideal that seems unique.
You can see this reflected even in sources like National Geographic.
Absolutely. Nat Geo resources do a great job explaining ecological balance and the necessary role of predation, that functional instinctive violence is key to healthy ecosystems. The lion's role is vital.
But they also constantly celebrate stories of human altruism, cross-species compassion, conscious conservation efforts.
Exactly. They highlight the human potential for deliberate kindness, for making moral choices that go far beyond basic survival instinct. We're the species that can ponder the ethics of our actions and choose to minimize suffering, even at a cost to ourselves.
So ahimsa isn't trying to make us unnatural. It's arguably calling us to live up to the fullest potential of our unique human nature.
That's the Jain vision. Our highest purpose isn't just to survive like any other animal, relying solely on instinct. It's to use our advanced consciousness, our awareness, to actively create more kindness and consciously reduce suffering wherever we possibly can, to transform potential pavahimsa into active compassion.
Wow. Okay, so stepping back and looking at all 5 challenges.
Accidents, thoughts, hypocrisy, progress, nature's violence.
It seems like the connecting thread, the key that unlocks each one, really is awareness. Sustained conscious awareness and the effort that implies.
That's the synthesis, isn't it? Libet's work pointed to awareness as the gatekeeper of moral action. Harvard research showed awareness physically changes the brain towards kindness, tackling pavahimsa.
University of Michigan data showed awareness needs to extend to our indirect Scope 3 impacts, addressing the hypocrisy issue.
The UN SDGs showed how awareness can guide progress ethically, countering the ahimsa stops progress argument.
And the comparison with nature via sources like Nat Geo shows awareness lifts us beyond mere instinct, answering the nature is violent challenge.
It all comes back to the power of conscious, mindful effort. That's the bridge between the ancient philosophy and the modern scientific findings. It transforms ahimsa from some impossible ideal into a practical, achievable, scientifically supported path.
A path of continuous self-improvement and ethical engagement with the world.
Exactly. And again, for everyone listening, those specific studies and resources, Libet on conscious will, the Harvard mindfulness work on the PFC and amygdala, UMich on carbon footprints, the UN SDGs framework, and the Nat Geo perspectives, they're all linked below for you to explore further.
Please do check them out. Which brings us then to our final thought for you, the listener, to take away from this deep dive. If the neuroscience confirms we actually have the physical brain capacity to reshape our minds for more kindness and awareness, and if global frameworks like the SDGs confirm we have pathways to pursue progress ethically and sustainably,
If the tools and the potential are there,
then what is the single most negligent area of harm in your own life? The place where you currently operate with the least awareness, the most pramada. What's one specific area you could choose to bring dedicated, conscious effort to improving, starting tomorrow?
a powerful question to sit with. Because ultimately, this knowledge, this understanding, finds its real value when we apply it, when we translate awareness into action.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you. And don't forget to subscribe for more conversations like this.